I don't know how many videos of his we've watched now, but they're always very good. This one's about Classic WoW's first seasonal server is about to close forever. This one just came on my suggested channel, and it's been out for a few days now already. So, um, I've had some very opinionated opinions about Season of Mastery. I love the idea of a classic fresh ROM that kept cycling over and over again. But then when they launched or announced the changes that they were going to make to Season of Mastery, I did a video on it and made a point about how I thought the suggested changes were terrible for the game. I even had a dev from Blizzard tell me that they actually watched my video and took note of the issues that I had with their changes. One of the main ones being that Battlegrounds are going to come out immediately. And the other one that was a big no-no for me was that they were going to, it was only going to be on a 1-year cycle. And my point in the video that I made was that people that were playing it, the majority of people that play vanilla are casuals, even though maybe we aren't. Those of you that are watching the video, maybe you're not. But the average person that's playing the game is a casual gamer, whether you know, it's just true. And I basically made the point to, the Blizzard developers that these people that are casuals are going to find out very quickly that they can't keep up with gearing, can't keep up with the pace, and they're going to quit playing, and you're going to lose a massive amount of your player base. That on top of the fact that the gearing was going to be primarily done through Battlegrounds meant that if you weren't playing for like 16 hours a day, you could not keep up to get your best in slot gear. So it was a massive problem right from the beginning that not just myself, like I don't want to take all the credit. A lot of other people were saying the same thing. And Blizzard wouldn't change it, wouldn't make any adjustments. And if you think that they literally made Season of Mastery, it came out when? What month did Season of Mastery come out? Like they literally made Season of Mastery on a 1-year cycle because of their fiscal yearly cycle, so that it would make their fourth quarter look good every year. That's literally why they did it. They didn't take into any consideration of whether it would actually improve the game. The only thing that mattered to them is how much more profits can we get out of it if we can have it come out every single year. And that mindset is just ruined the game for them, like year after year after year, and expansion after expansion. They only care about their revenue, and it's not even like their yearly revenue, it's quarterly. Like they will literally wait to release something or release something early to get more revenue for that quarter for their stocks to go up. Keep in mind, these people that are making these choices get paid in stock options for a bonus. So these people that should be non-biased are extraordinarily biased, and it affects their pocketbook. So they make these decisions based on, they make these decisions, based on how much they're going to make off their stock, which is stupid. So anyways, this is what Blizzard did. It backfired majorly. We all know that. It was fun for about 2 weeks, and then people left in droves. I don't think I've seen a game where people have left in droves as fast as Season of Mastery. I would argue that people were, even in New World, probably stuck around for longer in New World than they did for Season of Mastery. How depressing is that? I'm a classic fan, and it was that bad that I left after like 2.5 weeks. Anyways, we'll watch this video, see what WillE has to say. If you played Season of Mastery, this video will be posted on YouTube, but obviously, if you played Season of Mastery, let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what they could be doing differently, perhaps. So
of Mastery, it should be coming to a close fairly soon, you know. Releasing 16th of November 2021, Season of Mastery, or SOM, was a cluster of fresh Classic realms. It was Blizzard having a go at redoing Classic with alterations based upon community feedback, as well as, well, just trying to spice things up and offer a bit of a different experience. And with the Nax 40 releasing back at the end of July, and a roughly 11 to 13 month...
What is Season of Mastery even about, Keems? For the Keems is not, he's more of a well, he obviously didn't play Season of Mastery. Basically, it's a relaunch of classic vanilla with some changes to make it a little bit more challenging, particularly to raids and stuff like that. But a lot of the changes that they made didn't necessarily make the game more challenging. It was just changes for the sake of making changes, and they were stupid. So,
estimated duration, the project at this point is all but complete. So how did it go? What went well? What was wrong?
Keep in mind, when Blizzard first announced Season of Mastery, it was supposed to be a seasonal thing. They had intended on making it so that you basically got they were going to have it go on a yearly cycle every year. They were going to keep coming out. They even said that when they made the announcement that was their plan. It obviously did not work out. It was a terrible idea, like the way they launched it, the changes that they made. And because they did such a poor job of it, rather than actually making an effort to have a better launch, they're just like throwing their arms up and saying, no, this doesn't work.
Received? Did anything go terribly wrong? And the biggest question of all, is Blizzard going to be doing something like this again? Before we go on though, a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Naraka Bladepoint, who are currently offering a huge 50% discount on Xbox or free with Xbox Games Pass. What is Naraka Bladepoint though? Imagine a battle royale, but instead of it being building or shooting, it's combined a mix of melee weapons and hero skills to create a unique take on the genre, with less need for aiming and more prediction-based skills. Naraka Bladepoint is fast pace, and a key part of your mobility is your grappling hook that can be used to access all kinds of areas on the map, or even as a tool to knock down enemies. Each hero has unique skills that set it apart from others. Takaji's Earthshaker is a huge spinning AoE that lands in a massive damaging attack. New weapons are also added to keep the game fresh, such as the dual blades, which can fire off many quick attacks in short succession. Customize your character in more or less any way you want, and I really mean that. If you can think of it, you can probably try to make it in Naraka Bladepoint. You can even upload your own image and the game will recreate you. Click the link in the description right now to try Naraka Bladepoint and you'll get a 50% discount on Xbox. Many thanks to...
I've never heard of this game before and I have no interest in it. No.
Naraka Bladepoint for the sponsor today. Let's talk WoW. Quick mention that
The reason why I watched these sponsored videos though is people were getting upset that I was watching his videos or other people's videos and not watching the sponsored videos. I understand why he's got a sponsored video and I respect the fact that he's, I mean, hell, if I had a sponsor for videos, I might, put them in as well. And they're right. I could watch the videos since I'm watching his content on stream.
Transfers from seasonal servers to live ones or error are now available, and importantly, your chosen transfer is one-way, irreversible, and final.
Oh, wait, what's it? Season Mastery Realm to Wrath Classic Realm, or Classic what? Or Classic Era Realm. So wait, what? I don't even have a choice to bring it to a realm that I'm actively playing on. So I can put it on Eranicus? Or a Classic Era Realm. Oh.
You do not transfer your character off, they are going to be deleted eventually.
So basically, I mean, I can put it on Eranicus and never play it or transfer it to somewhere else. Why not let me transfer it to a character, like a realm that I'm actively playing on? Like... I mean, I'm not playing on Eranicus because my character was on Jom Gabar, and I'm not transferring it to it. I mean, I might be more inclined to actually transfer it to a white main, to be honest.
and final. If you do not transfer your character off, they are going to be deleted eventually. We don't know what date seasonal servers are formally closing yet, but you should transfer your characters sooner rather than later. So, Season of Mastery, the vanilla fresh servers. The Burning Crusade had come out a few months prior, and Blizzard decided now was the time to roll out these servers and see if people were truly interested enough.
Okay, hold on. Was the date here? I don't see a date for this. Oh, November 16th. So it was, yeah. Remember what I said is they launched these servers at the end of the fiscal period or the quarter so that they could get more people to sub so that it would make their year end look better. That's literally why they launched it when they did.
The time to roll out
and why they wanted it on a 1-year cycle.
These servers and see if people were truly interested enough in Classic to do it all again. This time with a lot less of a no changes attitude. And when did Season of Mastery start, you ask? Right in the middle of Phase 2 of TBC, during the most challenging raiding patch that Classic had ever seen. That was pre-nerf SSC and Tempest Keep, which at the time were literally required to do if you wanted to see Illidan on the top of the Black Temple, because achievements were still in the game. This was not ideal timing, not only due to how hype the current TBC
because they make money to transfer off of Aranicus. Is the transfer to Aranicus, that's free? That's got to be free. They're not charging you to transfer your character off of these Season Mastery servers, right?
Content was, but also because it felt like Classic was trying to compete with your attention against the Burning Crusade. It really didn't help how popular these realms would be. Speaking of the realms, there were, well, quite a few of them. Over on European English-speaking realms, for example, we had 2 PvE servers and 3 PvP servers for Season of Mastery. On live Wrath of the Lich King Classic right now, there are 13 realms total. That's including the 3 fresh realms which launched with Wrath. Even if we were to take away those fresh realms, did Season of Mastery ever merit having half as many realms as the live game does? I'm pretty sure the answer to that at every single point in time has been no, absolutely nowhere near.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Like, I think when Season Mastery first came out, it was pretty popular. It just had a lot of people that took off like very quickly. Like within 2 weeks, people realized how terrible it was, and bailed. I'm pretty sure. Like a lot of the realms, Jean Gabar was like backlog. I think there was a few other servers that were full all the time. People just bailed really quickly. So.
An environment where players made their best attempts in advance to mark out a server as this will be the one where everybody plays. And that worked, by the way. On Europe it was Dreadnought, which is of course the one named after Warrior Tier, and over on NA it was Jom Gabar, which is a very nice melee trinket. I'm seeing a pattern here. Just name a realm after something to do with warriors and everyone will go play there. Interesting. As for the other realms, I can see there being an argument for having one PvE server, just like the Wrath Fresh realms did. Apart from that though, there were a lot of players who frankly just rolled on a realm which was destined to die off in population pretty fast. So whether it was massively overestimating the number of players who would be interested in seasonal servers or just testing out how people reacted to the choice, there were too many realms for the launch of SOM. There were also a bunch of changes to the content pacing of the game, with Blizzard opting to bring forwards loads of stuff which would usually have come much later, including PvP gear being available from launch.
That was like, I mean, come on. PvP gear was immediately your best in slot item, and all people did was AFK in Ultric Valley all day, rather than actually going out and actually trying to grind for their pre-bis in dungeons.
We're going to be talking more about PvP later. Diamol being opened straight away, when in Classic it was a few months after launch. The tier 0.5 quest lines in Classic, these were as late as AQ40, and the level 50 Sunken Temple class quest, which awarded various decent quality blue items, including Diamond Flask, which no longer snapshotted healing anymore. That finally got nerfed. Overall, I liked having the extra choice in where to get gear from, but oftentimes these updated sources kind of just replace the old ones. Itemization in Diamol is...
there was updated, like it literally eliminated a huge chunk of the content. Like literally eliminated. Dire Maul was correct me if I'm wrong, Dire Maul was available right at the beginning, right? He had a list here. But I'm pretty sure Dire Maul was available. Yeah, right at the very beginning. First phase. So you immediately went into like what initially in vanilla was like phase 2. you immediately, or hold on. No, Dire Maul, yeah, Dire Maul was just before, yeah. So it was like the next phase, like immediately. So you weren't going to get your pre-bis through like, Sholomans and Strat and anything like that. You were immediately going into Dire Maul. But then on top of that, the battlegrounds were before put in at launch as well. So your weapons, you were just sitting there AFKing to get your High Warlord.
Much later, including replace the old ones. Itemization in Dire Maul is notably better than a lot of the stuff that came before it. Tier 0.5 is catch-up gear for the guy who can't make raids but wants to progress their characters, and the PvP items were well out of whack power-wise for how early they could be acquired. You were more or less forced to rank if you did want to set up your character well. I mean, yes, this was the case in Classic 2, but the rank gear being available from the start made it so much better than anything else, including raiding gear, by the way. It was so much better it felt like a waste of time doing the whole gearing ladder when you could just be running down Altaric Valley for 12 hours a day and eventually collecting items which were best in slot for months. And people will do whatever makes the most sense to gear their character even if it's not fun. That's a developer game design issue to stop that scenario from arising, not a player one to do something which is less efficient for them. That's not to say there weren't plenty of decisions made which undoubtedly went a long way to help Season of Mastery and its player base. The game was absolutely packed with quality of life features. There was an XP buff to grant 40% bonus XP from all activities the moment the servers launched, in addition to a boost of XP from completing elite quests. This was later ramped up to 100% bonus XP by the time Blackwing Lair had launched. Usually myself, I'm a bit of a questing enjoyer and don't mind a slower pace on leveling, but the server, by its nature, is seasonal. You need some kind of extra incentive to get people through the content a little bit faster, and I think that's fine. The cost of mounts were reduced because if you're hitting level 40 much faster than intended, your pockets are going to be pretty empty. This ensured you got your wolf, horse, mechanistrider, or whatever else the moment you were able to. Professions underwent significant changes to increase the availability of materials and speed up the rate at which items were crafted. On launch you could receive items like elemental earth or fire from mining thorium. All endgame zones had a greater number of mining and herbing nodes. Black Lotus, in addition to their own spawns, could now be obtained as rare drops from all high level herbs, similar to how Fel and Frost Lotus work in TBC and Wrath. Alongside Blackwing Lair releasing, further updates were made to alchemy so that those with the highest level of the profession could proc bonus crafts, similar to what those with master into potions, flasks, or transmutations could do in TBC.
I'd forgotten about a lot of this stuff.
In the AQ40 patch, this extra procs idea was extended to more cooldown based items such as Arcanite bars or cured rugged hides. It was in Season of Mastery that Blizzard really took a shot at cracking down on boosting, something which players had piloted into a fine art in Classic. The calculation of damage caused and XP gained was changed so that mob tagging was no longer effective. This was when a low level player hit a mob once to gain a tag and then a higher level player would finish it off in one hit. You repeat this many times over and it used to be good experience per hour. A ton of changes were made to elite mobs in dungeons, including them gaining immunity to snaring effects after 30 seconds.
Was there still boosting in Season of Mastery, or did this actually work?
And a further 30 seconds later a 50% movement speed buff. This made the boosting methods at the time more or less all completely invalid. This affected dungeons such as Zul'Farrak, Maradon, and Strat. In time, and even during Wrath, there are still ways to boost, but it's nowhere near the industrial scale non-stop mage spam in every chat channel that it used to be.
I'll be honest, I haven't noticed a lot of spamming for boosts in Wrath of the Lich King. I have seen it, so I know it is out there, but it's not like I saw it in TBC for sure.
In Classic, and with tons of bonus XP from questing, it wasn't going to take you anywhere near as long to get to 60, even just through normal play. There was
especially if you have Rested XP guide. If you have a good guide, you can there's plenty of them out there, but if you have a good leveling guide, you can get to max level basically almost as fast. Especially people are finding that in Wrath of the Lich King, dungeon grinding wasn't really that much faster than using a really good leveling guide. So I know there's plenty of them out there. There's Zygor's, there's Jonah's guide. I use Rested XP guide. Obviously, you guys see me streaming. I use it. I swear by it. But there are plenty of guides out there. So there's one that suits everyone. I think it's been proven that Rested XP guide is probably the fastest. It is the fastest, but some people have been using Zygors forever, and they're a little bit leery to switch. But these guides that people are using for doing questing are extraordinarily well done. So
also an LFG tool added into Season of Mastery 2, and now that I go back and look at it, it does appear to be a bit of a framework for what we've ended up getting when it comes to Wrath. All these for me were positive changes from the original game, which made sense when the server was destined to be seasonal. Another addition which was totally new and unexpected was the Soul of Iron buff. During Classic, a group of players had already begun to forge out a new way of playing the game, as opposed to the standard hit level cap and then go PvP.
That was honestly an amazing event, the hardcore challenge, the Road to Ragnaros. That was like a spectacular event.
It was all about undergoing the hardcore challenge with varying levels of self-assigned difficulty, no grouping, no trading, and perhaps most challenging of all, no dying, all the way from level 1 to 60. And this community had been gaining traction and interest throughout Classic. Enter Season of Mastery, and Blizzard added NPCs to Ironforge and Undercity, which allowed the player to toggle on World of Warcraft's first look at a hardcore mode. This was simply a buff that showed the player had never died. There were no real official rules to this challenge. It was left entirely in the community's hands to handle from then on out. There was also the Road to Ragnaros challenge pushed by the hardcore community, where they aimed to defeat Ragnaros with a full raid of players who had never known defeat. And they were successful in doing that, by the way.
Really good event.
Additional tab-outs for completing raids without dying, as well as a feat of strength achievement, which you can get on the Wrath servers for hitting 60 on Season of Mastery without ever dying. Soon enough, you'll see people start to ask, how did you get that tabard when the seasonal players begin to transfer to Wrath? It was a fun challenge, a nod to the community, and up to Ragnaros being defeated, it was the center of hype surrounding these new servers, more so than any other change that had been made. People were invested in the drama and the stories created at the time. Who is already level 60? How did they do it? Who is the first one? Has anyone died at level 60? What happened? Are they really going to be able to
some of the best times in Classic is the initial rush. People keep asking, why would you want to play on a fresh server? It's some of the best times in Classic. Everybody's giving her and going to try to get to max level as fast as possible. There's tons of world PvP, all sorts of stuff happening around the world. There's world firsts, and it's just more exciting. Whereas if you're playing, even Wrath, like you get to max level, my Warlock is basically raid logging after a week, like basically completely geared, ready to go, raid logging after a week. Whoops.
Ragnaros and so on. And at the time when seasonal servers were launching, people were asking for a hardcore specific server to mitigate people's efforts to grief, which were quite plentiful, by the way. Who knows, second time around, maybe there's enough interest. More on that later. Right then, on to the big one, raiding. This was the big focus of Season of Mastery. It was about mastering this revamped and buffed content. First up, buff and debuff limits have been removed from the game. No worrying about those anymore. Very nice. World buffs were no longer a part of raiding content. This had been a massive thorn in the side for players during Classic. You still needed your consumables, but they were a lot easier to get thanks to the profession changes we have already talked about. Also, and very importantly, this meant Blizzard had a realistic chance to tune the content around how powerful players were expected to be without those buffs. Also, come Blackwing Lure, all bosses dropped an extra piece of loot to help players gear up a little bit easier during this expedited timeline. And loads of encounters during every single raid saw changes. Bosses and Molten Core saw mechanics happen more often. Blackwing Lure had entirely new mechanics on several fights, such as Chromagus, where you had to hide behind an ice block. Zul'Gurub had additional ways to acquire mounts added to it and encourage you to take on a more challenging variation of Hakar, leaving some of the priests alive. AQ40 had a dynamic difficulty where you could choose the level of challenge you wanted, and throughout encounters, various tentacles or even a vision of Cthulhu himself would appear in fights. Naxxramas had a host of new spells and items to give players new and creative ways to take on encounters. There were a ton of changes to each raid, more than I can realistically go over here, and from all the people
they did make them a lot more challenging.
Raiding in Season of Mastery, they all more or less say the same thing. It's actually pretty cool, and it's a shame that more people didn't stick through it and actually give it a chance.
We have a lot of people, actually, a lot of people in our guild that they played all the way through Season of Mastery, and they came to join tyrants after once they were clearing Nax in Season of Mastery. They came over and joined with us.
Sometimes personally, but the thing is, even with the changes made, classic raiding is still pretty time consuming. Even with easier to get consumables, harder content is going to mean you go through them a lot faster. And for me personally, though raiding had changed and the revamped encounters would have been great to see more of, what didn't change was the power ranking of how classes played during raids. Blizzard had voiced at the start of Season of Mastery they hope things such as the debuff limit removal and raid alterations opened up the opportunity for players to bring a wider variety of classes and specs during the raiding content. It did not. Here's a 2-week snapshot of passes from actual Nax back in Classic compared to the seasonal version. It turns out the classes
same,
at the top remain there with or without world buffs. Numbers wise, everyone is still going for those well-known meta picks. For example, the Classic snapshot here saw 111,000 warrior passes compared to less than 1,000 shaman DPS across both specs, about 1,200 druids, and less than 1k rep hallers. Season of Mastery saw just under 8,000 warrior passes and under 100 ret shaman and druid DPSs respectively. No one is playing the hybrids in raiding content. What this season did failed to change that in any way at all. I think a lot of us predicted that harder content cements the meta before Season of Mastery even launched, and that is very much proven to be the case now. Also, most of the classes are still just one button. I don't know about you, but after having gone through Classic and TBC and now seen how classes evolve in Wrath, going back to
when I would raid on stream, I would be sitting there just pressing my number 1 key for my mage or my warlock over and over and over again. It was basically if I was on my mage, it was 1-1-1-1-1-1 just for Frostbolt. If I was on my warlock, it was 1-1-1-1-1 just for Shadowbolt. And the odd time I'd have to hit one of my mouse buttons for a curse. That was basically it.
Button game is a really hard sell for me right about now. On top of class balance, the faction balance also did what was very predictable. Alliance proved throughout Classic that from a performance point of view, more often than not, Paladin is gonna do better than Shaman. Also, more PvPers tended to play Horde for the racials, and if you care more about PvE, you actually still do want to PvP a lot for the ranking gear, and you're more likely to get instant queues for Battlegrounds, meaning better honor per hour if on Alliance. Throughout Season of Mastery, Alliance was quite consistently about 2/3 of the total player base, according to publicly available sources. Speaking of PvP though, let's give that a quick mention. So we've touched on the gear already. It was too good to be available from day one, or at least the rank 12
way
and
too
above
good
epic
to be
gear
available.
was absolutely too good. The rank 10 gear was still very powerful, however. Maybe even that should have been considered a bit too good for day one. There was another big change though, which was made to ranking. So what they did in short was doubled ranking point gains. This meant the grind to high ranks was cut in half, taking it from a matter of months to weeks. What this didn't change was the requirement to play for many hours a day when on the grind. The need to pull
I was doing it for like 16 hours a day. 16 hours a day. I got to 60 in less than a week, and then like the last 2 weeks that I played, it was non-stop Alterac Valley. And then on top of that, you, in order to even compete, to even have a chance at being at getting enough honor per hour, you had to be invited to a special Discord. If you didn't get invited in, you could not get into the pre-made groups. And yes, there were pre-made groups for Alterac Valley, whether you realize it or not. If you didn't get invited into those Discords, or if you got invited and then kicked out, you basically couldn't keep up. You could not keep up with honor per hour, because the people that were in that Discord, such as myself and other people, you were going for 16 hours a day at a much higher honor per hour rate than anyone could even come close to if they weren't in those Discords. And it just made it nuts. And it wasn't 3 weeks. Like it was, I still think it was like, I don't know. I'm thinking it was like 4 or maybe 5 weeks of grinding, maybe even of 6 of grinding honor in order to get your gear, right? Because these hardcore players are wanting to do it, and the casual players who are already kind of behind the 8 ball and trying to keep up on gear, they definitely can't keep them up with that kind of pace, so they fall even further behind.
available, or the fact that you aren't fighting against the opposite faction when you're ranking, you're fighting among your own faction to place as high as possible. At one point in Season of Mastery before it launched, it looked as though they were considering halving rank decay instead of doubling RP. This would have led to a much more casual friendly experience, as you aren't fighting against your ranking point decay nearly as hard each week. Now, personally, I've never been a fan of the ranking system. I don't know how this system made it into the first seasonal server after having seen how it went in Classic. I guess it is a core feature, which is why it's hanging on, but from a game design perspective, you know players literally have to play an insane amount over a few weeks if they want the top rewards. No other area.
I mean, think about it from a health issue. Like, people are literally trying to stay up for more than a day straight, log off, have like a 2-hour nap, maybe a 4-hour sleep, and then up and at it again. Like, as a game designer, is that something that you want to be responsible for?
Game forces you
to I know you don't have to do it, but you're certainly encouraging your players to do that sort of thing.
Do this apart from ranking. It's kind of complicated though, because you do want to gatekeep the gear rewards pretty hard due to how much better they are than anything else. If there's a season or two, I'm hoping to see a bit more work put into the ranking system and the gear rewards. Anyways, let's do a recap. Blizzard in an interview recently said they'd seen Season of Mastery as a success, and I actually tend to agree. It's definitely a smaller number of people actually wanting to go back when given the choice, but there's clearly a demand for it. A lot of people at least gave it a go, and I think that that is important. The website WoW Classic Pop shows a total number of 46,000 players have been seen on largest US server Jongabar over its life, and just over 13,000 of those were at some point level 60. We've seen some of the successes of Season of Mastery be ported over to the main game, such as the blueprints for changing boosting, for example, and from publicly visible sources on Ironforge.pro, there was a peak raiding population of around 11,000 players over the space of a week. And from Blizzard's point of view, I'd imagine it takes a smaller team only a bit of their time to dedicate to Season of Mastery. They have already rebuilt Classic on the modern infrastructure. Things such as altering numbers for ranking point games, releasing content earlier or later, things of that nature all seem like fairly quick fixes. And I would expect Season of Mastery had a ton of value from an informational point of view. Instead of just hearing what people are saying, what will they do?
Like, you would hope that Blizzard's developers would be able to turn back and look at how things came about in Season Master, or how it developed over the course of the year that it was out, and realize the mistakes that you would hope. They don't have a long history of seeing the mistakes and actually adjusting properly, but you would hope that they'd see the mistakes that they made and from the choices that they made and how they developed the game, that maybe they would make better choices, better decisions the next time around.
When they are really given a chance.
I don't have faith in them. Blizzard is such a bad company. I don't know. I don't have faith in them. That's why when people people come in and they're like, I want to play Classic Plus. I'm like, no, you don't. And I'll tell you why you don't. Those of you that are watching on YouTube, the reason why you don't want to play, you don't want Classic Plus, is because you're basically encouraging Blizzard to develop the game that they have proven from time and time again that they don't know how to develop it properly. All they do is ruin it. That's why I don't want to see Classic Plus. It's not like there aren't, maybe some adjustments that could be made to make the game better. I don't trust Blizzard to be able to make those adjustments properly, or adjust the proper things. They just seem to have, they seem to have a complete disconnect from what their fan base actually wants. And they're making decisions based on what is going to make them the most revenue for like a specific small time little period in the fiscal year, basically to boost their stock price. And that is literally what they're making decisions on, like when to release the game, etc., etc. Why did they release Shadowlands at the same time that they released Nax and Classic? Because they wanted as many subscriptions as possible in December, so that it made their final quarter of their fiscal year look as good as possible. Why? Because then the stock price goes up, and guess who gets stock bonuses at the end of that month? That's why. Like, you have to look at it from the point of view of the people that are making the decisions. And why are they making the decisions that they're making? Like, that's why. It's all greed, basically. That's what Blizzard, and that's why I don't want Blizzard developing Classic Plus, because it will absolutely destroy the game. And then on top of that, you'll have people they're not Classic fans. They're the people that are like, see, none of you are wanting to play Classic. See, why don't you go and play Classic Era? See, why are you not playing Classic Plus? See, nobody's playing Classic Plus because nobody wants. That's the shit that you hear all the time. And it's not that we don't want to play fresh vanilla. I guarantee you right now, if you were to have a Classic fresh vanilla, like with no changes, you would probably have more people playing that than people would even understand. Like there's a Classic Plus, or sorry, a Classic fresh private server that's coming out that is going to be enormously popular. Why? Because there's no changes. And that doesn't mean that there aren't changes that could be made. The point is that Blizzard would not make them. They would make the wrong choices. They have never, ever made the right changes, ever. They just do nothing but continue to screw up the game. And that's why people don't want Classic Plus. That's why people are against it. And that's why I would play Classic Fresh again, because it's still my favorite version of the game. Even now, after having played TBC and now the beginning of Wrath, it's more evidence to me that Classic Fresh Vanilla is by far my favorite version of the game. It's why I think there's going to be a ridiculous number of people playing the private server when it comes out. It's supposed to come out in less than a month. It's going to be enormous, by the way, enormous. But you know what? You'll have people that, when people start asking for Classic Fresh or whatever, you know what you'll get is you'll get the same fucking nimrods that are like, you already have Classic Fresh, you already have Classic, why don't you go play on the Classic Era servers? And they don't understand that that's not fresh. That's a server with people that are with characters that are like 2-3 years old now, that have a ridiculous amount of gold, a ridiculous amount of gear. That's not fresh. And if you can't understand the difference, then you're a fucking idiot, basically.
Choice. What is just a vocal minority shouting for something, and what do people actually want to engage with? All in all, I do expect there to be another seasonal server for Classic, not for the Burning Crusade. I think Blizzard have already outlined there doesn't appear to be enough interest for that. For Wrath, quite possibly, but it's too far away to say at this point. For Classic though, it could go one of two ways. Clearly there are some mega Classic fans out there who would
I've had disagreements. I mean, Wiley doesn't know who the fuck I am, but I've watched videos of his, and I don't know that he seems to be of the opinion that Classic Fresh would work. I am of the opinion that Classic Fresh would be more popular than Classic Season of Mastery or Classic Plus, personally. I think Classic Fresh, no changes, would be by far the most popular version. And the proof is in history. Like, you can look at all the private servers. They just get more and more popular with every fresh new private server that comes out. Okay, when we went from Nostalrius, which was really popular, to Elysium, then I believe there was Lights Hope, and Lights Hope, and there's one that I'm missing. Elysium, Lights Hope, and Northdale. Anyways, like, they just get more and more popular, and people keep playing. They keep going back. So to say nobody wants to play them is complete garbage. There's Chronos as well. Yeah, sorry, I'm forgetting Chronos, which is still immensely popular. So
play any fresh that they are given by Blizzard. A kind of player who would enjoy more or less a no changes 2019 Classic release all over again, with only the minor quality of life or bug fixes which were made over Classic's original duration, and possibly to have the Chrono Boon in from day one, just to make world buffs a little less.
I'm gonna get angry. Let me rewind, and I'm gonna explain to you why this is the dumbest effing thing. This is another one. Chrono Boon is a ridiculous suggestion. I'm gonna explain why, because there's people that are listening to this and they're gonna be like, "What is this old man talking about?" I'm gonna explain to you why it's a stupid
no changes 2019 Classic release all over again, with only the minor quality of life or bug fixes which were made over Classic's original duration, and possibly to have the Chrono Boon in from day one, just to make world buffs a little.
Okay, the reason why Chrono Boon is an absolutely stupid thing to bring into the game is for one major reason, is on PvP servers, it absolutely kills world PvP. absolutely kills world PvP. And all those times when, you know, the game just launched and guilds were competing for world first, and you'd go and try and eliminate the other guild and wipe them from the raid buff so that you'd have the advantage, that's gone if you bring in the chrono boon. The chrono boon is, if you were going to bring it in, it must, in order for it to not really have any impact on the game, it must only be allowed to be activated when you're in town, both when you're storing your buffs and when you're reactivating them. Findy, shut up. Okay? So that means before you go to raid, you have to apply the buffs. But guess what? You're going to have people that are like, no, I don't want to do that. Because you know why? Because they're scared of world PvP. And those people need to be on Peggle. They don't need the chrono boon. They need to be on Peggle. If you're scared of losing world buffs because of world PvP, you need to be on Peggle. Just stop acting like you should be allowed to play on a PvP server. It is absolutely ridiculous that they're bringing that chrono boon is even in the game. But if they're gonna bring it in for the purpose of being able to store your buffs so that you can keep playing your character, you should have to absolutely reapply those buffs before you leave town, so that you still run the risk of losing it, so you don't lose the world PvP that is so popular in the game.
The less painful. I'm pretty confident that there are people out there who just want to play Classic as it was without all of these different changes. Fan servers have shown time and time again that this demographic exists. Option 2 is we go deeper down the seasonal rabbit hole. We've done
I actually want to
chrono boon in from day one,
carry on
just
from
to
here.
make world buffs a little less painful. I'm pretty confident that there are people out there who just want to play Classic as it was without all of these different changes.
Yes.
Fan servers have shown time and time again that this demographic exists. Option
There's
2
huge
is
numbers
we go
of people that
deeper
exist.
down the seasonal rabbit hole. We've done raid changes.
So-
Surely the next step is
So here he's talking about having more changes and adding more to Season of Mastery and allowing Blizzard to have the decision-making power to make these decisions when they've shown that they're just completely incapable. I don't know how anyone could choose this path.
class changes, gear rebalancing, stat allocation.
Could you
and so
imagine
on.
allowing having Blizzard make decisions for class balancing and all this other crap? You think that they could actually make the right decision?
They make hit and crit from percentage into ratings to make them more easy to balance. Will all specializations for each class get a tier set, and tier now perhaps drops as tokens? How about new craftable gear from tailoring, leatherworking, and blacksmith, maybe other professions, which aims to help out hybrid DPS a little? Maybe instead Blizzard goes full in on the hardcore community's initial success, giving an actual hardcore server. Maybe you even lose items or experience on death, a version of World of Warcraft which adds a ton of risk to the open world. Well, why not all of these? Why not just release the lot and let people make a choice? I think it would be a good idea to only do one thing at once. I really don't believe the seasonal server does much to fragment the player base from the main game, and people are always going to be playing whatever the main game is. But I think for seasonal servers, it's in its best interest not to offer too many choices. Just do one thing at once, try and do it well, make sure that everybody who wants that thing is playing that thing, and maybe something different can happen during the next seasonal server. Don't overload them. The same as releasing with too many realms, it spreads the interest too thin. For me, and this kind of goes for all variations of if and when they do a next season, I'd level casually because I enjoy leveling, I like the world of vanilla, and that's always been a very fun thing for me to do. Playing a 10 game is really very dependent on what's going on in Wrath, assuming it would launch in Wrath, of course. If they do anything around the time when Alodar is releasing, for example, that's not going to be any good for me. It also depends how much time investment is really needed to get into it. Playing one version of World of
I just think launching it during Wrath is a big mistake. I think they need to wait until Wrath is over and then relaunch vanilla, personally.
Warcraft already
Brendan.
takes a while, and if I'm going to be raiding, I'd rather have a set guild which I play with. I'm not interested in pugging. For Season of Mastery, there were actually a lot of positives and definitely some negatives. That's what happens when things change, and I can tell you after having played World of of Warcraft since, well, actual vanilla, and now having played Classic for a few years, people forget how often things would break or be bugged back in the original expansions. They weren't quite all so smooth sailing. I think it's pretty easy to scapegoat any single decision you didn't like about Season of Mastery as to the reason why it quote-unquote failed, but in the end, these seasonal servers are just always going to have a smaller, niche community, more or less whatever Blizzard end up doing, which is why I personally don't mind them going absolutely crazy with changes if they are so inclined. Hopefully when Blizzard announce the transfers off Season of Mastery and its ending date, they do some kind of closing post on how things went and ideas they may have for the future. That would be really great to hear about. I guess let's wait and see if there's a Season 2 and what they choose to do with it. Let me know what you'd like to see for Season 2, and if you gave Season 1 a go, how did it go for you? Were you happy with it? Did you not like it? How long did you play? All that good stuff.
I think I've already expressed my opinion on Season 1.
Thank you all so much for watching and listening in. And I'll
as
see
well
you
as like
95%
of the player base who just bailed on it. But anyways, good video. As always, WillE puts a lot of work into the video. Again, I'm not going to rehash everything that I just said, but I think honestly, Blizzard developing classic vanilla is just, I mean, you're just going to end up getting to Shadowlands eventually with the game, because they just do not understand where the classic community's player base is at and what they want to see in the game, and they just keep screwing it up, and they make decisions based on purely on greed. It's not decision based on what the players like. It's just based on, hey, when are we going to launch this so that we can make more money off of it, basically. And that's the bottom line. So anyways, good video by WillE. If you enjoyed his video, if you're watching this on YouTube, please go to his channel and like and subscribe to his video. The links will be down below. If you like my commentary, like my video as well, subscribe to my channel. And if you want to, you can come to my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/Alodar. I stream 6 nights a week from Tuesday to Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So you can see you there. We can talk about Classic, Wrath of Lich King, anything else. Other than that, that's it for me for this video. Until next time, take care and have a good day.